What's up guys, it's Nav here. So after finishing off 95 prayer, I immediately wanted to start working on 88 summoning to access unicorn pouches, as they are a great source of on-demand healing, which are usable through scrolls, allowing you to essentially bring stacked food as long as your familiar has enough special to use the scrolls. So first thing, I actually picked up a demon horn necklace. This item requires 90 prayer and 90 dungeoneering to unlock and equip, and also cost 35,000 dungeoneering tokens, which I did actually have, as I had around 227,000 tokens from when I did my 25 hours of dungeoneering video. This necklace is particularly better than the low level version Twisted Bird Skull necklace, which I was using, as it will only give 50 prayer points back when a bone is buried, no matter the type. The Demon Horn necklace on the other hand will give between 50 to 150 prayer points back, depending on the quality of the bone that is buried. For example, Dragon Bones return 150 prayer points, Big Bones return 100 prayer points, and regular bones return 50. So with that out of the way, I had to think about what I could do to earn more gold for summoning shards, as well as collect charms. Now there were a few alternatives I had to choose from, including just continue on with Slayer in general, but in the end I settled on Dark Beasts. Now there were numerous reasons why, but the main ones were they are relatively AFK, they're aggressive for some time, and it isn't too hard to reset their aggro once they stop attacking you. Also, it is relatively risk-free, when compared to some other places such as Celestial Dragons, which will kill you as soon as your super anti-fire runs out if you aren't paying attention. Dark Beasts, on the other hand, when combined with Soul Split and Demon Horn Necklace, will allow you to keep your health and prayer sustained as long as you don't use AoE abilities and pull more than you can actually handle. So after some time had passed at Dark Beasts, my Royal Crossbow had finally run out of charges, and given it was such a powerful tier 80 weapon, I decided it was worth the effort to recharge. Now in saying that, I only assumed you simply had to take the weapon back to Queen Black Dragon and fight her until the last phase to have the weapon rebrandished. Apparently this isn't the case, and you need all the components again to take to the dwarf guy so he can actually have it fixed again before it can be rebrandished. So from the perspective of an Ironman who doesn't have all the parts, I was rather disappointed. They don't cost much to buy from the GE, but to have to farm all those parts again every time it runs out of charges seems a bit over the top for a tier 80 weapon. So nevertheless, I just opted to use my crystal bow as an alternative, which was pretty decent, and I didn't actually have too many issues with accuracy at Dark Beasts. So in total I did spend roughly 20 to 25 hours over the course of 4 days or so at Dark Beasts, until I was pretty happy with the amount of gold I had in total, which was 30 million, which I thought would be more than enough for 88 summoning. Now in that time I had managed a lot of charms, herbs, and many other things, mainly being loot off of the rare drop table, as well as nearly 4 million defense experience. So in general, Dark Beasts were pretty good to me, considering the amount of effort they required, or at least the lack of effort. So now, I was ready to begin actual summoning training. I had a rough idea of what I wanted to make, but I hadn't actually calculated anything and just planned on seeing how far each thing would get me. In saying that, I was fairly confident I had more than enough charms and gold to get me there, but I was slightly concerned I wouldn't have enough secondary supplies. So after stopping Dark Beasts, the happy hour event did actually start, which I decided to do before figuring out my secondary supplies. But nevertheless, right as happy hour finished and the voice of Seren changed, it did change to Amlot hour. So unprepared, I did head to Prif and started making pouches, starting with Granite LOBSTERS. Now luckily I had a decent amount of granite from when I leveled mining to 75 some time ago and I never used. Interestingly enough, you can make Granite LOBSTERS with any weight of granite, even though logically you only want to do it with the smallest weight, otherwise you're wasting potential supplies, given you can break down larger pieces of granite into multiple smaller pieces, especially as an Ironman, where it just means wasted time if you had to actually go and get more granite. So I continued making Granite LOBSTERS until 77 summoning, and at that point I used my TALON Beast charms, which makes TALON Beasts, as you would assume, and gives a little over 1000 experience each, which is the second highest out of any familiar in the game, which is pretty crazy, especially for something that only required Crimson Charms. But unfortunately, I did only have around 100 or so of these TALON Beast charms from the temple tracking minigame, and quickly ran out of those, so I had to continue making Granite Lobsters. And due to my poor planning, I did actually run out of the smallest weight of granite and had to stop summoning altogether just to split up the bigger pieces of granite. So this overall took me about 15 to 20 minutes just to split all that granite, and it left me with about 2,000 Granite Lobsters to run, which I continued to do for the remainder of Amlod Hour, and it left me at 82 summoning by the end of the hour. So next Amlod Hour did begin, and I was somewhat more prepared, and I continued making Granite Lobsters until 83 summoning, which allowed me to make Spirit DAGANNOTH with Crimson Charms and DAGANNOTH Hide. Now usually DAGANNOTH Hide isn't a readily available supply, but I did have roughly 350 or so from Celestial Dragons, which did drop them noted as I was killing them for Slayer tasks. So this got me to a little over 84 summoning, but did eventually run out of hides. So at this point I moved on to Moss and Fire Giants, requiring Earth and Fire Talismans. Now I only had 9 Earth Talismans, but luckily had 425 Fire Talismans, as they too dropped from Celestial Dragons as noted items. So moral of this video is Celestial Dragons are great for summoning in every aspect. So it didn't take long and I hit 85 summoning, as the blue charm familiars are great experience, and even running them rather slowly like I am, I was netting over 2 million experience an hour. And once I did run out of Fire Talismans, I moved on to Adamant Minotaurs, which only needed Adamant bars, and I had over 2,000 of those, mainly from Slayer, so it was my safety net to getting 88 summoning. Next up I hit 86 summoning. Now this allowed me to make Rune Minotaur pouches, but I did only have about 154 Runite bars, which were pretty much all from blacksmith dailies. So as you can imagine, they were great experience, giving a little over 23,000 per inventory, but didn't last long, and I reverted back to Adamant Minotaurs. And within 10 to 15 minutes I managed 88 summoning relatively easily, with a little over 200 blue charms and 10 million gold spare, so I was pretty happy with that. So in the remaining few minutes I did make a few unicorn familiar pouches before Amlod Hour ended, and decided to wait for the next one until I made my remaining pouches just to get the extra summoning experience. And without having to wait too long, Amlod Hour did roll around again, and I made the remaining unicorn pouches and scrolls, with the unicorn horns I got from Celestial Dragons. So I ended up with about 250 unicorn familiar pouches and nearly 1800 scrolls, which would be plenty for when I attempt Vindicta. So all in all, I was pretty happy with the end result. This step was a lot easier and faster than the previous few steps I've had, partly due to Slayer attributing to so much of what I already needed, I suppose, but regardless, I will now be looking into 91 Herblore, and then finally I would have everything I needed to get back into PVM and take on Vindicta. So that's it for this one. I can't say for certain whether my methods of training summoning were the most effective or not as an Ironman, so if any other Ironmen have leveled summoning to 88 and beyond using different methods, feel free to post them in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.